All right. Welcome to Hammond Seventh-day Adventist Church. This is our monthly health and wellness program. Today, we're going to have a topic focusing on our kids, helping them during this pandemic. But before we get started, we'd like to invite our pastor, Pastor Ovid, to open us with prayer.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for another opportunity to learn how to have an optimal health, physical, spiritual, for us, for our children, as parents, educators, as Christians. We worry too much. Help us to have peace and learn how to cope with stress, with everything bad in this world in such a way we will be blessed by your presence in our lives. Lord, help us in this hour, not just to learn, but to have boldness in sharing what we learn with others, our loved ones, or our strangers, neighbors around us. Lord, bless the health message. In Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. So each month we have a special guest, and we are pleased to have with us today Dr. Catherine Jackson. So Dr. Jackson, known as Dr. J, is America's #1 brain psychologist. Dr. J is a licensed clinical psychologist and a board-certified neurotherapist. As a speaker, she shares a wealth of information with others on topics related to mental health, the brain, and holistic health. She is the owner of Optimal Neuroholistic Services, ONS, and founder and nonprofit of Dr. J's Holistic Health and Wellness. Dr. J helps people rewire their brain, mindset, and habits so they think and feel their best. So for more information, we'll have her website posted, but it's drcatherinejackson.com. Welcome, Dr. J. We're so thankful to have you.
Hi, I'm so thankful to be here, and thank you to Pastor for opening us up with such a nice, strong prayer. I usually start with the prayer, but I think this prayer covered everything, so I'm going to slide right on into the presentation. So I don't know about for you guys, but this pandemic has been going on way longer than I ever thought that it would, and maybe because we had information at the beginning saying that it would be much shorter, and it is way longer than we thought. And I never imagined that the kids would be going back to school, and we're still in the pandemic and having to adjust to a whole new life. So we're going to talk about how we can kind of manage that as we continue to go on, and there is truly no end in sight that we know of yet. And so we're in a completely different world, right? And so what do you guys think? It can be any parent who's there live, any parent who is on Zoom, or anybody. What do you guys feel like is really different? Like, what is truly different right now while we're in the pandemic? Different from what we knew pre-pandemic. And I can just take one person.
Yeah, the fear, the stress, the unknown.
Yes.
And for how long?
Yep, and that's part of that. That's part of the unknown too. So that's great. That's one of the huge things that's different, is just not knowing. We were used to, a certain routine, and every whatever amount of time we would do X, Y, Z. Like go to school, come home, go to work, come home. The weekends we have this plan. Every so often, if you're anything like me, we have a certain a vacation planned every so often. Everything completely changed, and with that change came changes in parenting. So when the kids began staying home sometime in March for most people, and most of them are still at home and working, doing school from home, and most parents are doing work from home too, even though some are returning to the office. That changed up everything with parenting. Now parents have become kind of like the teacher or a teacher's aide, kind of, and having to do a lot more work and helping the children through the work, where the kids will get all of that resource, all of those resources with the teacher and from the school. There's even been personal changes, kind of like what I mentioned before. Things like your own schedule for work has changed. Maybe you're working completely from home, maybe you're working partly from home and from the office. Everything has changed and everything is so different. And Pastor just talked about a personal experience. I know for me, I had a lot of different things on my schedule to do. I do a lot of work outside of the office and not just seeing patients each hour. And a lot of that changed. I had my biggest speaking engagement ever, and that all fell apart. And so, as the kids are getting used to things, so are we adults. We're getting used to a lot of changes. And so what we want to do first, and all of the parents, I know all of you guys out there are good parents. What we do first is that we want to make sure that we're supporting our child's mental health, or our children's mental health, if you have more than one child. And we want to do this by allowing children to express how they feel. So it's not a good practice to brush over those feelings that they may have. You want them to express them. If they feel sad about something currently, allow them to feel sad. If they are frustrated because some things are canceled or they no longer can do them, allow them to express that disappointment and that frustration. That is completely okay. The thing that we don't want, and what God tells us not to do, is not to stay in that. We do want to express it because it's important to get it out so that we're not holding it within our bodies. And then it comes out in a whole bunch of other kinds of ways, like you see it in misbehavior with children, or they seem like they explode at every little thing that might happen. But we want the kids to get it out and be able to express it. And so you want them to, you don't want them to stay there. That's where I was going. God doesn't want us to stay there either. He doesn't want us to be sad. He doesn't want us to stay frustrated. And so this is the time to identify why they feel the way they do. Try to get the children to verbalize exactly why they feel that way. So just to say, I'm mad, okay, that's one way to get it out. But if they say, I'm mad because, then we know exactly why. And sometimes we know we can help kids find a way to figure it out, or to solve the issue. It may not look like what it would have been pre-pandemic, but they can find a solution, and solutions help us all to feel much better than wallowing in the problem. So you also want to normalize the kids' feelings. When we normalize it, we let them know it's okay to be upset right now because some things fell apart, or because we wanted to go back to school, but we can't. And we have to continue doing things online right now. Or maybe they look forward to going to a place like Chuck E. Cheese, and now they can't. It's okay. You want to normalize it. It's okay to be sad about that if that was something that they did regularly. And kids were looking forward to going back to school so that they can see their peers face to face, not through just Zoom, or not through just small little gatherings. They get to see all of the other students. And many kids were not able to return to school. So we want to just normalize kind of how they're feeling, and let them know it's okay to have feelings and to feel what they feel. And most parents are really, really good at providing comfort. Even in that comfort that you provide, you want to try to share some of your own feelings about the pandemic. If your children can see you going through it, and that it impacts you in a certain way, and they see you getting through it, then they too will feel like it's okay. But if we, as the adults, start freaking out about the pandemic, and we are showing a lot of stress, our kids pick up that stress. So I tell parents often, and I talk a little bit more about it later in this presentation too, that you want to first take care of your own needs. If that is that you have to seek a mental health professional to talk things out and to come up with some solutions, then that's fine. Or if you need to reach out to your pastor, or even for some people, but I say do not wear out your family and friends. But if you want to, you can also go and talk to family and friends, as long as you're not wearing them out, because people will get tired. They will stop picking up your phone calls after a while. And we don't want to wear out our welcome when we're reaching out to family and friends. Whatever you do with your children, you want to make sure that you're keeping the emotions low whenever you're having a discussion. Try not to talk in a way where like you're sharing other parts of the news, or if the school is telling you that they're not sure when the things will open back up. You know your child. If giving them things in small doses is the best way to do it, then do that. Or if you have a child who truly thrives off of knowing that I'm really not going to be going back to school right now until 2021, sometime in 2021, if they do better with that news, then give them that information. All kids are different, and each kid at different developmental levels only need a certain amount of information. So some teenagers may be able to take on a whole lot of information, whereas some of the younger children may only need a little bit here and there. You also want to help kids accept what they cannot change. And that is going to be key. We can't change a lot of these things that are being forced upon us right now. And it's okay. But if we can accept it, it becomes a lot easier than when we fight against it and we think things like, well, I want to go back to school. Like if you're a kid, I want to go back to school. I want to go back to school next week, face to face. But if the school already said that they're not going to be opening the doors again until November or January of 2021, then helping your child to accept that will make things a lot easier, especially emotions-wise. And then you can do certain things to help them manage or accept the things they can't change. One of the big things is where you guys are right now. So it's the scripture. There are lots of different scriptures that you can pull out and use and say them with your child. And you've already been giving the children spiritual education and Christian education. So you just want to build on that, which you've already planted seeds on. Another thing is inspirational quotes. So really nice quotes that you can post around the house that mean something to you and or your children. This is the time where you want to use some of that to help them accept some of the things that they cannot change. And then, as I mentioned before, parental role modeling. So if you use quotes, if you're using scripture, if your children see you pray, if they see you managing things really well, they will manage things much better at this point. And then we want to teach the kids how to manage disappointments, because a lot of disappointments are going to come during this time. And one of my favorite, well, I have two favorite ways that I'm going to list here, but I have several different things. One of my favorite ways is focusing on gratitude. And so we want to focus on the good that kind of comes up. And I have been big on gratitude for a long time after I found myself in the dumps with my own career just a few years ago. I feel like I've been at this place where I am in my career for a long time, but I really haven't. I was struggling within my career at one point and actually came to a fork in the road where I said I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in mental health or if I was going to go. And I had long talks with God, and I focused on all the good that God had already given me within my career. It was me and a close friend of mine in New York, and we did this for a summer. And after having a hard time getting over a hurdle, I just focused on gratitude and I studied. I focused on gratitude and I practiced. I focused on gratitude and I went back in, and God allow me to be victorious with this, which told me he wanted me to continue on in the mental health field. And so gratitude is really big. It's something that's free. People think it's no big deal, but the more we focus our minds on the good that's going on, the more good we pull back into our lives. Whatever you think about is what you bring about in your life. So if you focus on God, you're gonna get a stronger connection and a stronger relationship with God. If you focus more on the good that God is giving you, you're gonna bring in more good. And the same is true with negative. If you're focusing a lot on the negative in your life, well, guess what? You're gonna bring a lot more negative in your life too. And so I'm wondering if one person would like to share some good that is going on or a good thing that is kind of coming out of this pandemic. One person. Somebody can unmute. Nobody? Shall I keep going? Let's try to, I like to hear from everybody else. Okay, I'll keep going. My second tip for helping kids to manage disappointment or even just their emotions during the pandemic is to use deep breathing. So diaphragmatic breathing, like breathing from your stomach, it works wonders to calm our internal system. So it's gonna, when we're anxious, we are igniting our brain and we're going into like a fight or flight. But when we do deep breathing, that calms the brain, that calms our nervous system down, and then we can think more clearly, we feel calmer, and that helps us to get at least past a certain situation. And when practiced over time, it helps to rewire different connections within your brain, and you feel a sense of calm over time. So if you are practicing deep breathing consistently, then even when you're in the midst of some kind of difficulties or some kind of trouble, it's easier for your body to stay calmer in the midst of difficulty. And then some other things that you can do to help children manage their disappointment and their emotions is something like listening to music. And that can be gospel music, it can be classical music, which is very good for the brain, or whatever kind of music your child likes. And you want to get your kids moving. So some physical activities or doing something that they use their hands and being creative helps to take their mind off whatever is going on in the world and is causing any issues. And then you can get into expressive things like art or painting, journaling. If they like to write or if they like to sing, you want them to be more expressive and creative. And these are great ways to take their mind off of whatever's going on in the world. The beauty about all of these that I listed, we're saying them for the pandemic, so we want to amp them up right now for the pandemic. But I'm going to give you guys a secret. You can do these even after the pandemic are over or a pandemic is over. These things work wonders no matter what's going on in life, but we need them more now than we ever needed them before because we are in the pandemic. And so you also want to come up with an alternative plan or alternative plans. So you know that everybody by now knows social is not the same as it once was, and engaging in activities is completely different than what it was in the past. And so we want to make sure that children are staying connected with family and friends so they could do something like this. I couldn't physically be in Hammond with you guys today, so I'm coming to you guys via Zoom. And it's not just for professional things or meetings for all of us adults who are all Zoom meetinged out, but it could be a social thing. You can get your kids together on Zoom and they could play different games online and so on and so forth. Some people I've noticed have been doing face-to-face engagement, kind of like what you guys are doing here at the church, where they're social distance, mask, and while the weather is still really nice, this is a great time for people to do something like an outdoor movie projected on a big screen or a big wall outside. And that's what a lot of families that I see are doing, and they're doing their gaming outside on the big screen or bonfires or, roasting things over a pit, like an open pit. So you don't have to completely abandon all of the fun stuff right now. We just have to reimagine what that fun stuff looks like during this time. So that's a mouthful right there. And some of these other tips are more for you guys as the parents. So structure is key. If there's no structure during a time of chaos, then it gets to be a little bit harder to keep kids feeling safe and keep them feeling like everything's going to be okay, because everything's chaotic outside the house. And then when there's no structure inside the house, it feels like everything is chaotic inside the home too. And so you want to try to keep those routines that you had. Of course, you can relax them a little bit. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you have to make some alterations to parenting. So if you let the kids stay up a little bit later, or you relax some of the rules around screen time, those kind of things are okay for now. But we definitely want to keep a certain amount of structure so that they feel a certain amount of safety, and that everything will be calm and okay, at least if it's not anyplace else, it's here in the home. And then there are times when I don't care what we do, we just have to enlist some help. And I wonder if any parents here on Zoom or any parents in live at the church, if anybody reached out for any extra help during this time. So I'll give a couple minutes if anybody wants to share.
We are doing right now.
There we go. What did you say?
Yes. What we are doing this right now. It's
yeah. This is a big form of support. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So attending something like this, that was a great point, is a form of support. Some people or some parents may enlist the help of a tutor, because did you ever sign up to be kind of like a teacher's aide or the main teacher? No. That's why we send our kids to school, so that they're with people who are trained to teach. And not all parents are good in that role to provide support for education throughout the whole day as if they are a teacher or a teacher's assistant. And so some parents enlist the help of a tutor to help get through this time. Some parents also enlist the help of somebody to sit with the children while they get a little bit of time to themselves, or if you're married, with your spouse. You want to make sure, if you're doing that during the pandemic, that it is somebody else that you know is staying safe and will not present any, like germs and bringing the possibility of COVID-19 within the family. And then some parents enlist things like extra support through a parenting coach, or even if things are getting a little tougher and you need a little bit more support, reaching out to a mental health professional. All of these things are fine. Do not feel like if you have to reach out for support in any of these ways or any other ways that you can think of, that it means that you are failing at your parenting role. Every day, we're all working to do the best that we can within whatever roles we have. And as long as you wake up each morning, you give your best effort and you give the best that you have to give that day, you're doing great. And then it is important, if I could put exclamation marks here, I would. It is so important for parents to make sure that they are engaging in self-care during this time, because parents will make sure everything else is done, and then they put themselves so far on the back burner that they forget about themselves. But again, when you're doing great, when you're feeling good, you have more to give to your family, and your kids learn that it is important to take care of themselves too. And so here's my next question. What do you guys do for, so I can take a couple people for this one. What do you guys do for self-care? Anybody want to unmute, or anybody face face to face want to come? I don't know if there's a mic there or shout it out.
Thank you, Dr. Jack. That was very informative, just to some of those little things. But, I think kids are so resistant. We forget to see how resilient they are. I watched two kids from both sides of the street. One lived on one side of the street, the other. They raced their bikes up and down the sidewalk across the street from each other. Usually they play together, but they talked across the street and walked back and forth and did their stuff from there. So it was kind of a creative idea. Kids
Yes, and they altered or reimagined how they could still socialize, which is so cool. I love it. And the kids are so resilient. I'm glad that you said that. They bounce back really easy. They just need like a brief blueprint on how to do it. Anybody else want to share some of their self-care as the parent, as the adult, some self-care that you're doing during this time to make sure that you're keeping nice and balanced throughout the pandemic?
For self-care, I believe that things like I love movement, exercising, yogurt, warm bath, essential oil, dancing. I'm good with mine. Music, you just find time to do things that you enjoy. Crocheting, knitting, whatever when the kids may be sitting with their thing, you find time for yourself.
Thank you. I love that, especially that essential oils, because I love essential oils and scents. They just do something for me. They really relax me. And lavender, chamomile, and sometimes like a little bit of basil will help. Not all together, but all of those essential oils helps to calm you down. And I also loved, Ms. Atkins, what you said about all the different things that you noted, because sometimes essential oils may work for you. And then another time you may need the music. You may just get into a whole jam fest and that's all you really need for that day. And so you got to really listen to what you need. We got to really be in tune with ourselves, listen to what you need and give yourself that for the day. And when your children see that you're giving to yourself, and you can include the children in with it too, then that lets them know that they can take care of themselves and calm down. They don't have to stress out so much. Thank you guys both for your comments. And so are there any final thoughts that anybody has? Any questions?
Dr. J, we did have another question.
Uh-oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Is there any difference between girls and boys in general in coping with COVID-19 stress?
What I found with girls, and it's not everybody because everybody's an individual, but most of the girls seem to be turning it inward and most of the boys seem to express it outward. So their frustrations with the boys, it seems like it shows up more behaviorally with a lot of the parents and the kids that I'm working with. Whereas a lot of the girls are turning it in, they seem a lot more sad and depressed. Whereas the boys, it looks like more oppositional. They're frustrated. They might be sad underneath that about some of the things that are happening, but it's coming out in their behaviors like more explosive than it does with most of the girls. I hope that answers your question. And so we have a couple more minutes. If nobody has questions, then I'm just going to move to a few other things that I have for you guys.
I have just one question.
Yeah.
On how are the parents actually dealing with the kids? What do you see the parents? You gave us a lot of suggestions. Are you seeing that parents are doing those things? And
yes, that's where a lot of my points came from.
Okay.
Was things that I've either actually recommended and parents have put into place, or some of the parents have put some of that stuff into place and I never even thought about it, especially the creative social interactions with their kids. So like, I don't know if that was you earlier who mentioned the two kids like with the bikes, but a lot of the parents were telling me that they were having backyard things with the mask, with social distancing, making it short so that kids would already have like used the bathroom at home. And when they come, they don't even have to come into their house. So they would only meet for like an hour, 2 hours. And then the kids go back to their own respective homes. And they were keeping everything really, really socially distant so that the kids were not exposing each other to anything. And they were only having kids over who they knew parents were also doing similar social distant and social distant practices and following a lot of the recommendations for the pandemic. So if they knew a kid was like all over the place and not really following the guidelines, that kid was not welcome to the home. So a lot of the things that I've mentioned are either things I've mentioned to parents before and they put them into practice and they know that they work, or some things that parents just mentioned to me, or even the kids have mentioned to me. And I'm like, those are really great ways of integrating it. And so I've added it into this presentation today. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
They're very good ideas. I think we forget how creative we all can be.
Yeah. Yeah. At times like this is where it just kind of kicks in when we have to be more creative.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Any other questions? We got
Dr. J,
Mhm.
is it harder with teenager than a younger children?
Oh my, I could have a whole presentation on just the teens. I will say that.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit harder because, you know, being a teenager is kind of like that middle ground between being a kid and being an adult, and they feel like they're more adult. And a lot of that brain development is not there, the brain is not fully developed until around the age 25, give or take. And those teenagers, you know, they're getting closer and they want to rebel a lot more. And so that's why when we do see a lot of the people who are breaking it as far as kids go, it's the teenagers. They're breaking a lot of the pandemic based rules because one, they don't believe that it will catch up to them, and it may not catch up to them, but they could be a carrier for somebody who is older who lives in the home and then make them sick. And the kids also don't, they just feel like they'll live forever. So a lot of the time they just feel like nothing's gonna happen to them. And as I mentioned with the brain earlier, the frontal lobe is the last part of the brain, and that's where we have decision making, executive functioning, and so on and so forth. And so that's why we see more of it with the teenagers, because they're in between and they're rebelling against it, and they don't have the full brain functioning. So they do what they want. A lot more of them do what they want. I hope that answered your question.
Dr. Jackson.
Yeah,
one
somebody,
more question.
is that you with the hand? Somebody raised their hand.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Well, I want to be impatient, but not losing the opportunity to
No, jump in there. Jump in
say
there.
something. Now, of course, I'm a pastor and I have to ask this. Great how to work with them in our homes, how to be creatives, how to have roasted marshmallow outside in the evening, eventually in our backyard. Now in the church, like kids, especially small kids, they love routine. And the Sabbath school for children, it was a great tool for our church, and we as pastors and educators and parents, we miss that. Do you recommend to be more assertive in inviting parents to not be afraid and come back to church with their children for Sabbath school for children, Saturday morning? Or keep them in their homes and play with them? What is the balance here?
So everybody who's staying home is staying in for different reasons. And I am not a medical doctor, so I can't speak on the parts of the pandemic that are physical, which is if you get COVID-19, you're going to have a lot of really hard and harsh symptoms that are physical. But if it's more of mental health based, I do say you could recommend that they start to ease their way back in and not allow anxiety to set in and holding the children back. And you may have to provide a lot of information to let them know that it is safe for the kids to come back. Like when I came in, I came a half hour early to this presentation so that we could troubleshoot any technical issues. And I was really happy to see all the chairs spread out and that you guys are taking precautions. And if you're spreading out the chairs and everybody's wearing masks, including yourself, then I'm sure that all the proper cleaning is taking place and you're making sure that everyone is washing their hands afterwards and so on and so forth. But even with the recommendation, some parents may still just not feel comfortable to have their children come back. And so we just have to all exercise a lot of grace towards others and ourselves during this time. And so you want to make sure that if people just aren't ready, that we're okay with that. We're not going to make one group feel a certain way versus another group. Everybody will come back in their own time. But I'm with you, Pastor. I really miss the face-to-face of my church. In fact, this Sunday when I was watching my church streamed, I just was like, I'm getting so tired of the streaming. And it's really rough even on this end as a mental health professional. I do 35 or more hours on Zoom just with patients. So not even counting extra things like this. And it starts to get a bit old and it wears on you. But as for the members of the church, let them come back kind of in their own time, but keep doing what God tells you to do and let them know and give them let them know that they're welcome, that you really would like to have them back with no pressure, and let them know the things that you are doing as a church to take all the precautions so that everybody remains safe. I hope that answers your question.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to come here in person in this church?
In your church?
Yes.
I will
Next
come
week
back
or next month? You can choose.
You said what? And do
Next
you guys
week or
have
next
Sunday
month?
Mm, no,
Saturday.
Saturday.
Saturday, I mean, but your doors are back open? Yeah. I won't be going back because I do do a lot with my own older parents. I won't be and my whole church is older too. I won't be returning to anybody's church until my church is back open. I hope that makes sense. Face to face. So I have to kind of stay nice and safe because I interact with my older parents and I don't want to bring anything to them. I would hate if I'm the one that passed something on to them. And that's the only reason why, because I would love to go back to work and see a couple patients face to face.
I think what you're referring to is a lot of things we're all going through. We don't want to be that one who would get it and share it with anyone.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's a huge fear. I work in a hospital, so we have all those precautions, and yet I spend a lot of time on Zoom. So between the two of it, it's really kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, God does have a way of influencing each one of us.
He does. And
So
he
you're right.
I feel like he will let me know when the time is right to go back to work and whenever I can go visit a physical church and so on and so forth. But I do plan to come visit with you guys when the world opens back up so I can meet you face to face.
That's wonderful. I enjoy your passion for kids.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions? I know we have about 10 minutes and I don't want to take up all the time because I know you guys got to go get the kiddos. So I hope whoever raised their hand, I hope that was somebody I actually spoke to. Another question? Miss Atkins, I see your hand is raised.
Well, a statement. I
Mhm.
just want to say I truly enjoyed your presentation and the information was on point.
Thank you. I
It's,
really
it's,
appreciate
it's
that
truly
feedback.
fascinating, so thank you.
This
And
is usually a longer presentation with
for-
more interaction, but we got it in. We got it in. And so I want to just say thank you to you guys and share just a couple of different things. So I have a book coming out soon. It really should have came out in May when we talk about pandemic disappointment and stress related to the pandemic. I have felt it too. My book should have come out in May, but of course everything is going so much slower. And I am just accepting that thing that I can't change and waiting for God's timing. But I have a book on mental health, and it's like A to Z, all the things you need to know guide on mental health, and it's called The Couch Experience, Finding a Guide to Good Therapy. Sorry. So The Couch Experience, A Guide to Good Therapy. See how long it's been? It should have been published already. I'm forgetting the title. A Guide to Good Therapy, and it tells you everything that you need to know about therapy to have a good therapeutic experience, plus so many different options other than just talk therapy that are available to people when they're working with a mental health professional. And that little URL down there, the tiny URL /TCE book, that's how you can get on the mailing list so that you can become aware of when the book actually launches. So if you like, take a picture of the screen, and I would love to have you guys join the mailing list. And I also have, somebody else. Yes, go right on, unmute yourself.
Oh, it's me.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you?
yes, I can hear you clear.
Oh,
Mhm.
I just want to know if you have any, if you can make available any games or arts that you provide for kids. Do you have those on a website or somewhere in the on Facebook?
I don't
I'm
have
a
any
pre-K
listed.
teacher, so I would like to see
See a
what I
couple. Yeah, I can actually give
bring
you
more
some
to my
recommend.
class. I can hear her.
Can you? Can you hear me? I'm not sure, but I can definitely send you some games. I use games online with kids and use some of their toys therapeutically too. So I can give you some recommendations for some games for the kids that you can put online. I hope that answers your question. I don't know if you can hear me.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And so I will send you guys that. I'll get your email address, or maybe that's the general email address that I can send that information to. Just give me like a week or so, and I'll send that to you. Is that all right? Yes. Okay.
Yes, we are
so-
muted. Sometimes we cannot talk because it's a reverberation here.
Okay. All right. So that's perfect. And then I have two gifts for you guys. One is if anybody would like to work with me, I am a parenting coach. And so I can work with moms in particular, but I also work with dads in a different way. And so if you would like a free consultation, if that's something that would work for you, I'm happy to work with you in that way. And I would also offer one free parenting coaching session with you one-on-one. And so if you're interested in that, you can go right over to my website. All of my information is right here. And then just send me a note. You could either send an email, or you can send, there's a form on there that you can sign up and actually book a 15-minute consultation with me, if that works for you. And I am the host of Her Parenting Place, which is a parenting group for moms. And I also provide one-on-one parenting coaching for dads outside of that group, because that group is only for women. And so I hope something here that I shared, I always allow God to speak to me. I pray before I do any speaking engagement so that I can share something that will be helpful for the audience. And I ask God to lead exactly what I'm going to say. And so I pray that something here that I shared works for you and was helpful for you and was beneficial in some way. So that's all I have, and I hope I tapped out in time, Ms. Taylor. I mean, Ms. Tyler, I'm sorry. So I'm all done.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. You
Thank
are
you.
awesome as always,
Thank
a true
you.
blessing. And this is something that we do. Because of the pandemic, we have not had our monthly health and wellness class. So this is our first. So thank you for
Wow.
being here for our first since the pandemic. Next month, October, we do this every third Monday. So next month, October, we're looking to focus on health and the impact with the pandemic, how to do some proactive ways to help with the health. So hopefully we can get you to come back again. Because you
would love
speak
to
our
come
language, you're a plant-based person. So
Yes,
you know,
I am. I am.
we definitely believe in and promote that. So hopefully we can have you come back another time as well.
I would love to have to come back whenever you guys would like me to come back. Just let me know, and I will put you on the schedule.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you guys
So
for having me.
you're welcome. Thank you. Have a good night, and thank you, everyone. We appreciate you joining us.